Hello and welcome to round 11 of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League, the penultimate event in this exciting new e-racing series headlining the array of online riding initiatives from Cycling Ireland. We're on the 9-kilometre Richmond cobbled climb circuit for this week's race, with a total of 36.4 kilometres of racing across the 4 laps. As last week, it's a staggered group start and the riders are assembling ahead of the start coming up very shortly. Runaway points leader Chris McGlinchey of Vitus Pro Cycling was made to work for his 7th victory of the series last week, with Darren Dunn and Colm Sheehan in close attendance at the end of 48 kilometres on the Greater London circuit. In the women's race, Maura Claffey continued her recent dominance, the team on-form rider making it a 6th win in a row by more than 5 minutes from series leader and good friend Shannon Kelly. It means that Claffey has taken over the series lead ahead of today's race. The Dubliner is going to continue her policy of treating each event separately without looking too hard at the points table.
I just treat each week in the exact same way. I just try and give it my very best each week. So I'll do the same for the 2 weeks coming forward now and just finish it out. Still a bit of work to do. The main thing is that I beat my friend Shannon. So we can have our little bit of chat and conversation after the races like we usually do. But, you know, it's important that I get one over her by the end of the league.
Well, it's going in the right direction at the moment. Have you had a chance to have a look at the course for this week's race?
Tough, but no epic KOHs or no big kicks. But nonetheless, I assume it'll still split up again in the same way as the other weeks have. So yeah, more of the same, and I'll expect to go into it strong and try and finish as strongly as I can as well.
Taking his 3rd podium of the series last week, Darren Dunn from Nina Cycling Club is another triathlete who has embraced the challenge of online bike racing with vigour.
No, it's good. It's good crack. My form is still holding together somehow, so I'm having fun with it and passing my Saturday mornings. I suppose triathletes are generally more fond of the turbo. I've never was, but cyclists, I don't want to step on any toes. They're generally a bit hardier. They don't tend to go indoors as much as we do. And then I think the dynamic of the race and kind of sets it up for us more. Like the furthest we tend to race, unless you're going towards Ironman, is 20 or 40k. So in a road race, you know, the bike side of things, you're doing 120 plus k for a typical race. We're used to the shorter, a bit harder, a bit more power for less time kind of side of things. So I think it just suits us a bit more.
And is there any particular course that suits you in particular? Last week, obviously, you were on flying form.
Like last week, coming towards the finish, it got very, very close. And I was thinking of the overall. So I did kind of go to the front to try and make sure that our little group of 4 or 5 stayed away. But now I'd really like a win. So we'll see what we can do over the next 2 weeks. And I don't know, we'll have a crack.
In the overall standings, Chris McGlinchey is now mathematically certain to win the inaugural Cycling Ireland Zwift League. Darren Dunn is still 2nd, with Jonathan Caulfield currently 3rd. David Gearing continues to lead Group B, Ross Blaney heads the Cs, and Philip Kyohan is the leading D rider. Maura Claffey now has a 2-point lead in the Women's League standings over long-time leader Shannon Kelly, with Eileen Burns a further 17 points behind after 10 events. Sharon Kennedy still leads the B group, Teresa Parr leads the Cs, and Armel Mangan remains the leading D rider. Today's 11th round of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League takes place on the 9.1-kilometre Richmond cobbled climbs circuit. It's got 3 tough climbs at the back end of the circuit. I'm delighted to say I've been joined once again by Ronan McLaughlin of Panache Coaching, one of Ireland's top roadmen. He's going to run the rule over the riders this morning. And Ronan, this one looks like it's one for the classic specialists.
Yeah, it certainly is. You know, it's part of the lap that made up the Richmond World Championships course 5 years ago now, and you know we've seen who won those races was Lizzie Deignan in the women's race and Peter Sagan in the men's race, and you know both of those riders are known for their classics pedigree, and you know that it's really the nature of the climbs, short and punchy, and they're all backloaded into the second half of the lap. You've got 3 very short climbs within the last few kilometres, and it's just the nature of them being so steep, being back to back, being very close to one another, that will provide the real challenge. When we actually look at the climbs, they're not overly long, or they're not incredibly steep. but it's just the fact that they are so frequent, and there's very little recovery between each of them will provide a real challenge for all the riders in the race this morning.
Yeah, it's a bit of a roller coaster, isn't it? Does that descent at the start of the lap offer an opportunity for a little bit of a micro recovery? And just how significant is that drag up to the finish line going to be?
Yeah, I think all the riders will welcome that descent. On the first lap, it won't have much of an impact. It may just mean that the group stays a bit more together than it usually would. But certainly as the laps go on, the riders will be more and more glad of getting that bit of respite on the descent. Then, as you say, the climb up Governor Street on the last lap will play a key role. The fact that you've got such a steep climb leading you onto a false flat finish means that it's unlikely to be a normal sprint that we would see, week in, week out on Zwift. I think even last week's sprint was slightly downhill even. There'd be none of that this week. It's, you've got that short, steep climb to really sting the legs, really tire out the legs before the riders can unleash their sprint for the finish line on what will be a false flat as well. So far from the normal sprint, you may find some riders get caught out by that, maybe leave their sprint a bit or start their sprint a bit too early and maybe fade before they reach the line. So certainly, the sprint for the finish should be interesting this week as well.
Yeah, just 2 more opportunities for the riders. Anyone who's looking for that first win or that first podium will be starting to get a bit frantic.
Yeah, the pressure's starting to come on. We're into the penultimate round this weekend, and anybody who hasn't yet picked up a win will be, and maybe has been knocking on the door week in, week out. This is the chances are certainly fading away. They need to try and make the most of it this weekend and next weekend.
Opportunities diminishing, but there are still a couple of great chances to take that all-important podium, maybe a victory. Maybe Eddie Brennan be the man to step up today and take the 10 points. We believe that Chris McGlinchey is not on the start line today, so that's going to be a little bit of good news for 1 or 2 riders that fancy their chances of maybe taking a maiden success in this year's Cycling Ireland Zwift League. I can tell you that 4 riders have taken victory in this series to date. 4 male riders, indeed, 4 female riders as well. 3 male riders from Ulster, 1 from Connacht. Who's going to be the man to take the victory today? Well, we're going to find out very shortly. Within 20 seconds of the start of this penultimate round of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League, we're on the course made famous at the World Road Race Championships in 2015 in Richmond, Virginia. Most of the riders, though, are based in Ireland. Not all. We've got plenty of visitors who are going to make their contribution to the day's action as well. As the clock goes to 0 and the riders wind it up to 1,000 watts and the rest to try and get perfect and prime position into the early stages. And Ronan, with a little bit of a plunge downhill in the early stages of this lap, are we going to see a bigger group together for a little bit longer?
Yeah, that's we think we will do. Yeah, that normally the opening of a Zwift race is incredibly intense, and if there's any sort of challenging terrain in there at all, it would tend to split it up quite a bit. But with this week being fairly flat and then leading into a bit of a descent there, it should stay together a bit more than we're used to seeing.
Lindsay Watson, winner 2 weeks ago, is back in action here. He missed last week's round, but he made a sort of a flying visit to the series a couple of rounds ago, and a very impressive performance it was indeed. The man from Belfast is in there in the leading group, well to the fore. We'll keep an eye on his performance and his progress throughout the early stages. The camera focuses on Eddie Brennan, who's handily placed in the league table with 10 rounds of the 12 completed to this point. Eddie Brennan sitting in a handy 6th position, the Dublin Wheelers rider, 5th last week. Is he going to get on to the day? Some of the other names to conjure with in the early stages. Neil Delahaye is staying well to the fore. He's got big watts to offer here in the early stages. Might not be so keen on the climbs, but I suspect that this is going to be a course for he and indeed for a number of other riders who might have been challenged somewhat by the climbs that were presented in the middle part of the league. The league series. Now we've got a couple of offers and a couple of opportunities perhaps for riders, more of a classics orientation.
Yeah, certainly this course this week, as we just heard, suits the classic style of rider. And if we think of the likes of Tour of Flanders or something like that, that they have cobbled climbs in that race, and it's not your usual tiny climbers that you see prevail on those climbs. It's usually the big, powerful units that can churn out massive watts over a short space of time that can really excel on that type of terrain. And we'll see the same here today, that anybody that's got a few watts about them should do well to the fore in today's race.
I thought that Darren Dunn's comments, we spoke to him earlier in the week, and you saw him at the top of the show, and Darren is handily placed in the lead group at the moment, but Darren was suggesting that triathletes are they're happy enough to jump on the turbo on a regular basis. They reckon that, say what he was saying, cyclists or people who focus only on cycling tend to want to get out the road. They're a hardier bunch. Maybe I think you need to be you need to have a certain mentality to be able to sit on a turbo. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but he believed the triathletes really have taken to online racing for a number of reasons. They like to ride on the turbo, but also a lot of short course triathletes are used to the short, sharp effort, and this is a slightly shorter race this week. It could perhaps play into those that are suited to sort of a half hour, 45 minutes of racing.
I can see what he's saying there, but I think whether you're a triathlete or a cyclist, you're sort of to get into those sports in any sort of level, that's almost a prerequisite that you have to be somewhat tough anyway. So I'm not sure if we can definitively draw a line between cyclist and triathlete there and say one's tougher than the other. I think there's definitely challenges to both sports, and we're certainly some of the toughest athletes out there. But yeah, the possibly the short, sharp nature of the events here on Zwift maybe suit the triathletes a bit more. Possibly thinking, around the fact that the effort in a Zwift race here is probably very similar to that you would find on the bike leg of a triathlon, and that you haven't got the short, sharp accelerations that you get so frequently in a road race. A triathlon would tend to be much, especially the non-draft triathlons, tend to be much steadier effort right at thresholds, right on that sort of the most intensive effort that you can hold or sustain for a longer period. And that's very much similar to what we find here in a Zwift race. So, certainly there is a bit of a correlation there between the bike leg of a triathlon race and the Zwift racing that we see here.
Well, we're focusing on Maura Claffey at the moment. Not quite. She's just stepped into the lead of the women's standings, but in a way it's a runaway success for her. She's been winning for fun in recent weeks, and Maura Claffey, any sort of a points finish today will confirm her, will rubber stamp her victory in the Cycling Ireland Zwift League. She just theoretically or mathematically can be caught by Eileen Burns, but I don't think it's a realistic option. So any sort of a points finish today will do for Maura Claffey. As she says, though, she wants to take the wins. She treats them all as individual efforts and doesn't think about the points, and that's certainly been an approach that's been paying dividends. At the moment she's in the lead group, but that lead group is going to thin out as we head towards those three short, sharp shocks at the back end of the lap, and then you've got that sort of steady little drag to the line. It's not by any stretch a climb, but it comes on the back of a short little climb, and it is a little bit of a falls flat up to the finish line. So it's going to be a grippy little finish. Way to go before we get to that. Some riders have been jettisoned from this lead group, but to all intents and purposes, a lot of riders are managing to nestle in the wheels and stay close to the front, and being close to or on the front is going to be all important when we hit the first of those drags, because you could find that some riders are going to be distanced, and you find yourself 20 or 30 meters behind the leading riders at the early stages. We see Lindsay Watson is well to the fore in the early stages. Darren Dunn too, as we've mentioned, has put himself in prime position. He's really got the hang of Zwift racing, of online racing, knows exactly how to place himself in prime position. Ronan Grimes, the impressive paracyclist, world medalist, and indeed gold medalist, world champion, and he's looking forward, I think, to Tokyo next year, and he's putting himself into the hurt locker today, see what he can do about and see what his form is like. Darren Dunn is in the shed and pressing on, the Nina Cycling Club man. Focusing, doesn't look like he's got his race face on at the moment. It would suggest that he's comfortably within his zone, within his effort, but a few little efforts coming on from various riders in there. Kevin McCambridge, Matteo Cigala, we didn't mention him in our opening comments, but he has got a podium finish a few weeks ago on the Innsbruck circuit, and Cigala will be a man to watch out for when at the back end of this race. always assuming that he's able to hang on up these cobble climbs, and they do hurt. This the way that the game is constructed, the algorithm means that these cobbles are a bit like real cobbles. They do actually hurt, and they really do slow you down as you hit the gradient. The gradient is all the tougher for the cobbles that the game is constructed for them.
Yeah, certainly, they have built that into Zwift that, there is that extra resistance on the cobbles, but we would have just seen there, on the approach to the first time up Levy Hill here, we can see the bunch is getting stretched out quite significantly, but, even on the approach to it there with nice smooth tarmac, flat roads leading into a bit of a drag that took us towards Levy Hill, and the fight to get into that, front half of the bunch to get that good positioning was really on there. There's some big watts being laid down there, and we can see why now as we see the riders cresting Levy Hill. There's gaps between 3 and 4 riders altogether, and then there's a gap, and then another 3 or 4 riders, and then another gap, and it's where those gaps open. Even if you've got the best legs, it's very, very difficult to close those gaps, and that's why the riders were fighting so hard on the approach there to Levy Hill, was just to make sure that they don't get caught on the wrong side of one of those gaps.
Certainly blew it apart. Tom Wright as well to the fore. Kevin McCambridge is showing at the front as an advantage of 4 seconds, although I'm not sure his heart rate is picking up at the moment, so that it could be a bit of an issue. Some of the other names to conjure with: Fergus Callaghan has been the podium finisher in this event. Colm Sheehan staying well to the fore. Chigala, as I've mentioned, is well into that lead group. Jonathan Caulfield is scrolling through in the top 15 riders at the moment. Delahaye, we've mentioned. Richard Barry has scored a couple of good results in the last couple of weeks, is in the top 10 at the moment and putting himself into prime position. So there's some big names have made an appearance. Paul Oldham is in there as well, former British cyclocross champion, in the top 20 at the moment. He is well used to those short, sharp shocks and those intense and rather painful beginnings to events. The veteran rider is in the top 15. He's not going to be registered though for Cycling Ireland points, so he's not relevant in terms of adding to a points total or affecting those that want to score points here today, but he and others, those other guest riders, can certainly have an influence on the race. Got to get into the tuck where possible. It's what goes up must come down again, and this little descent offers an opportunity for some very, very brief relief.
Yeah, welcome opportunity for some riders to get into the super tuck position there and just rest the legs up a bit. And thinking back to the World Championships when they were on this course 5 years ago now, we've seen Sagan power up that last climb, and he was in the super tuck position coming down this same road here. And what he was trying to achieve there in the final lap of the World Championships is exactly the same as the riders are trying to do here. It's just to recover that little bit before this climb up Governor Street towards the start finish line of the lap. And that, as we see now, we're onto a bit of a flat road just before we hit this climb, and that especially as we tick down through the laps here, that ability to recover quickly on that short little opportunity that you get will be crucial.
Yep, we're on roads made famous by Peter Sagan back in 2015, Lizzie Armitstead, Lizzie Deignan as she is now, back then as well, taking a famous World Championship success. And Colm Sheehan is at the front. He likes to show what he's made of and get as close as he can to the front without, of course, it's the subtle art, isn't it? Without, of course, going onto the front. And the speed and the intensity and the ability of these riders to get up these short climbs at a rate means that there is a significant draft effect. So there still is a value in trying to stay on someone's wheel, even though it is, gradients of around about 7%.
Yeah, well, the drafting effect on Zwift is much more pronounced than it is on the road and in the real world. So certainly any opportunity you can get to make the most of that, riders certainly should. And I think one thing that might happen this week is without Chris McGlinchey being here, there's no natural favourite for the race. I suppose everybody's in with a very good opportunity, and that might just lead to a little bit of hesitation. Who's going to make these initial moves to really thin out the bunch. We've seen Chris do it in previous weeks, very early on in the race, and without that this week, you might just find that the racing potentially could turn a little bit negative. Maybe everybody looking at everybody else waiting for the first move, but I think as we get through the laps here, it should open up naturally, just with the intensity of these 3 climbs within close proximity to each other. So some exciting racing ahead, I think.
Yeah, it was instructive, wasn't it? Darren Dunn was saying he really wants that win. He hasn't had a win in the series so far, so he's sitting second in the standings at the moment. Some way adrift, of course, of Chris McGlinchey, who's already been confirmed as the champion, the inaugural male champion of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League. And Darren Dunn, he's been knocking at the door. He's had 2 second-place finishes. He's had a third-place finish. He scored in all but one of the rounds, and indeed, he scored in every round that he's taken part in. So suffice it to say, really wants to win. So it has informed his thinking over the last couple of weeks. He has thought about the whether he really wants to make that effort, whether it might affect his chances of getting the victory. So I think, as you say, the nerves will be a jangling for one or two riders out there. And Kevin McCambridge, he's clearly on top form, sitting at the front at the moment. Not recording a heart rate figure. I wonder if that's going to be an issue. Darren Dunn there, Paul Oldham just close to the front as well. Fergus Callahan is also well up, and Callahan's had a pretty good run of late. The Four Masters Cycling Club rider was second 2 weeks ago and got up for a handy 6th place finish, 7th place finish last week, so he's on pretty good form as well. We'll watch out to see whether he can add to that his total today and perhaps take a second podium of the series.
Yeah, certainly some impressive results there from Fergus in recent weeks, and he's really been coming on in leaps and bounds in the Zwift League. So certainly another name that will be to the fore this week and fighting it out for the win. But you just mentioned Darren Dunn there in his interview. I find it very interesting. He was saying that we were sort of questioning last week, would the riders maybe try and put the onus on to Chris McGlinchey and try to go for the win, but he was focused last week on getting the points to move himself up in the overall standings. He is up to second place now, and he feels he has the freedom to try and go for a win this week. So there is races within each race going on here that maybe aren't immediately obvious on the screen, but the overall standings is highly prestigious for any rider to get up on that, and that was clearly his tactic last week, was to try and get as many points as he could. When it looked like that chasing group was closing in the final kilometres, he said he just made the effort to ensure the points, I suppose.
What will Jonathan Caulfield be thinking about? Will there be an opportunity for him to take a second victory of the series? Mayo's finest, the man from Castlebar Cycling Club, looks as if he's pretty much in control of his effort at the moment. Another one of these brief respite and just a little momentary glitch there, but he's safely in the group at the moment as he just gets back in the saddle and puffs out those cheeks. It's been intense stuff so far. His victory in the series coming way back in round 4 of late, though. He has been scoring consistently. That victory came on the back of a couple of second place finishes. Since then, he hasn't managed to make the podium. So will Jonathan Caulfield be able to sort of amend things a little bit? It was a nice 8th place finish last week, though. He has been in the point pretty much every single week, with I think just one exception. So super consistent performances from Jonathan Caulfield. Really has Zwift racing figured out. Scrolls to the front of the group and immediately throttles back a little bit to let someone else do the work, as they're pressing on at the front. And for all that it looks as if some of the riders at the front are able to manage their effort and look very much in control of their effort, well, they still have distanced the rest, and there's quite a few gaps already starting to appear. We take a look at the Dublin Wheelers Cycling Club man, Eddie Brennan, a man of the Ross, and a man who's feeling the effort. And for all that the temperature has dipped a little bit in this part of the world in the last few days, this part of the world being Dublin, of course, I can tell you that the temperature has dipped a little bit, but that doesn't mean that it's not pretty hot work when you're indoors and on your turbo trainer. So that towel is getting plenty of work for all the effort that is going in, and whatever contribution to the cooling is coming from whatever fans he has around and thereabouts. 314 watts is a decent contribution, and it's all amassing and amounting to around about 44 kilometers per hour across this virtual tarmac as Brennan makes his way onto the wheel of the rider in front. Important to manage the position, and he's indeed running second in this group, just behind one of our guest riders.
I just wonder there what effect the camera on the riders is having on efficiency. We can see Eddie there seemed to be aware that he was on screen, and the towel was out and fixing the hair, and he was looking very, very comfortable. But I wonder now,
sunglasses will be going on in a minute. Yeah.
I wonder now, with the camera cut away, is it still as comfortable looking? But no, all joking aside, he did look very comfortable there, and we see him just following that move from one of the visiting riders. So another rider that could be up there on the top step this week.
Focusing on Eileen Burns, who has taken victory in the series so far, and the former Irish time trial champion, Commonwealth Games participant, World Championship participant on several occasions in the Irish colours. And Eileen Burns is going well for Ballymena Road Club. Took victory on round 2. Then a string of podium finishes, a couple of thirds, second place, another third place contribution. Hasn't added to her tally in the last couple of weeks. She's back racing, and she's the only rider in with a mathematical chance of overhauling runaway leader Maura Claffey in the standings. Albeit it's a very, very tenuous, a very narrow, very small opportunity really for Eileen Burns to take that title. But she'll keep pushing, see what's possible. And if she were to win today, and for whatever reason Maura Claffey were to fail to the finish, then the final event next week would certainly be interesting. I think the nerves would be a jangling for Maura Claffey in Dublin. But the
other thing there is just the club standings, and Eileen riding for Ballymena Road Club has the club itself has scored 105 points so far, and are third in the club rankings, just behind Quanta Scott, Orwell Wheelers. So she'll be keen to get a big result today as well, just to increase the point standing for the club as well. It looks like Greenmount Cycling Academy have almost sewn up that club table, but certainly second and third place are still all to play for.
Yeah, good spot, and we're definitely worth a shout out indeed to Greenmount Cycling Academy. Sharon Kennedy and Ella Doherty have been scoring super points in the B category, and a number of riders from Qantas Scott Orwell Wheelers have been scoring in the A and B category. Karen McCarthy, Anne-Marie Lockery are probably the most prominent scores for them. But Ballymena Road Club, and there's no more proud member of Ballymena RC than Eileen Burns, and she's going to see what she can do about changing the point standings in the club competition amongst the women. As we look at Shannon Kelly, she's been overhauled and moved to the top of the standings. Maura Claffey just in the last since last week. And I suppose we should mention the fact that the riders are counting 8 of their top 8 scores from the 12 rounds. So the drop score situation has been pretty critical and pretty significant for quite a few weeks at this stage. But Shannon Kelly has been the long-time leader of the point standings, and she is good friends indeed with Maura Claffey. There's a very friendly rivalry between those two riders. Kelly not registered with a team or a club, but she's part of the same coaching group as Maura Claffey, who's a UCD Cycling Club rider and also a member of the team On Form, presented by Brother UK. Colm Sheehan towards the front of the men's race. Richard Barry, though, is up front with them, and it looks as if they've gone on a little bit of a charge, just a tiny bit of daylight between themselves and the rest. Well, here comes Chigala and the rest, and Richard Barry has decided to press on here up front in this, and he doesn't want to bring it down to a sprint, and this could be an interesting development. A few little cracks starting to develop in there. You see a bit of daylight between the riders. They're all starting to put it back together again, but these efforts are starting to take their toll at this point.
They certainly are, yeah. I think maybe still a little bit early in the race yet. I'd see quite a few riders coming back after this, but it'll all play into that cumulative effect, coming into the final lap, that all these little efforts that they've been making the whole way through the race, might not seem like much at the time, or might, split the group for a few seconds before it all comes back together again. But those extra efforts and those, high wattage that we see them putting out there now, we're up at 8.8, 8.2 watts per kilo as we hit the climb here. That will certainly play an effect the later we get into the race.
We're into lap 3 at the moment of 4 laps, so the penultimate lap, they come pretty quick, don't they? 9.1 kilometres in total. We're counting it down. There's 16 kilometres left. That's 10 miles in old money, if that's the way you count it. And Richard Barry, well, he doesn't mind. He'll be thinking about probably the kilometres more than anything else, and for him, it's about trying to maintain a position up front. Very consistent performances in the last couple of weeks. Got a great third place finish 2 weeks ago, and Richard Barry from St Finbarr's Cycling Club in Cork, 6th last week on the Greater London circuit, which was not dissimilar in terms of a number of rolling climbs, maybe not quite the same characteristics, but it could be one for him today. And Richard Barry's clearly on some good form. He rolls to the front in the super tuck position, and this group is starting to open up a gap on the rest, and it's It includes Eddie Brennan, Fergus Callahan is in there, Darren Dunn, as I've mentioned, Niall McCarthy, great job from him, Chigala, Paul Oldham, the visitor, for Callahan we've already mentioned, Richard Barry, you can see close to the front, Jonathan Caulfield, they're all rolling through with great efficiency, and that group has thinned down significantly. Are they all going to be looking beady-eyed at each other at this stage? Still a way to go.
There's certainly still a way to go, but I'm just sort of looking out at the riders who are sort of keeping a low profile at the moment. We haven't seen the likes of Lindsay Watson put his nose into the wind yet. Kevin McCambridge is keeping a fairly low profile there. Those are the sorts of riders that, if they are on a good day and they're saving their legs now on these climbs in the final laps, they could really put in big efforts that could just split this front group to pieces. Even Matteo's still in there, looking fairly comfortable. The last time we've seen him on screen, he'll certainly be trying to stave everything he can for a final sprint, and that is a difficult juggling act, in that you want to sort of save everything you can for a sprint, but at the same time you want to make sure you're in the front group for that sprint. So it's no good having a fantastic sprint in the legs if you're 2 or 3 groups back the road. So the riders will be trying to keep themselves as close to the fore as they can, expending as little energy as they can at the same time.
I just need to clarify something I said a little earlier. We're on the second lap of 4 indeed, so we're just coming up to the halfway point, and which will be reached about 18, just over 18 kilometres left in this event, and we're about 19k to go. So within the last shout up to the finish line to conclude this second of 4 laps.
I was wondering if I had a Wi-Fi glitch myself, because I was thinking I must have missed a lap somewhere.
No, I was just reading the graphic wrong. It's as basic as that. User error from this side of the commentary team. Apologies for that if anyone got a bit confused, but no, it's just me, and I'm usually confused. But anyway, 18.7 to go, and we're coming up to complete the second lap. We're at the halfway point. It's quite a few little joules of energy have been expended at this point. The riders will hope that they've got enough to get them through the second half of this event. Is this an opportunity for an attack or two? Riders showing willing and showing to be peachy keen to get to the front. And as you say, I wonder, is there a little bit of an effect when you put the camera on riders? They suddenly find themselves making that little surge of adrenaline. Colm Sheehan goes to the front, charges through. Colm Sheehan from Blarney Cycling Club. There's a couple of Cork riders thereabouts, and this looks to me like a full-blooded attack. That's a rider from one of the other groups who's been caught and passed. He's not relevant there, but this is certainly a significant effort, and Colm Sheehan has planned this one. There's no doubt about it. He's come up and over the third climb on the lap onto this little false flat through to conclude the lap, and he's decided this is a nice little moment to take and maybe surprise the group.
Yeah, big move here certainly, and showing there it's nearly 8 seconds of an advantage at the moment. Still a long way to go there with 17.8 kilometres to the finish. He must be on a good day if he's planning to go from this far out. I'm not sure if he had planned to go solo or if he was hoping maybe somebody would come with him, but he's certainly putting in an impressive attack here.
Colm Sheehan has been impressing throughout the league indeed. He's got 1 second place finish, he's got a couple of third place finishes as well, and he was third last week, so the form was good at the very beginning of the league. Finished second in round 2, then didn't trouble the scores for a couple of rounds, then a 4th place finish, a couple of non-scores, then he got that second, and as I say, last week 3rd place finish. So it's been pretty consistent stuff from Colm Sheehan, and believes that his best option is to get out clear of the rest and go race solo. Was he expecting perhaps that someone will come with him? Will he be minded to persevere, given that there are still over 17 kilometres remaining? Fergus Callahan is in his loft and is pushing hard, got the jersey on, showing the colours, and Fergus Callahan is the nearest man to our lone leader up front, but he's...
You can see him taking an opportunity here just to recover on this descent. You can see he's completely backed off the pedals and just, taking that opportunity to stretch out a little bit as well. And that is key to Zwift racing, is recognising when you have that opportunity to relax a little bit and just regain a bit of composure, I suppose, and catch your breath. But if we notice there, Colm Sheehan, when he was on the attack there, this gap is likely to go out. He was putting out 5.5, 6 watts per kilo all the time we had the graphic on the right hand side of the screen, whereas the group behind were, around 3.5 watts per kilo. So, and for the moment anyway, I see this gap growing, and it'll be up to this group behind to sort of get organised and to, start laying down a few watts to see if they can decrease or close this advantage a little bit.
Well, momentarily the gap went up to just a smidgen over 10 seconds, just nudging 11 seconds for Colm Sheehan. Now that looks as if there's something of a chase. 17 riders are in that chasing group behind, and Colm Sheehan has certainly laid his stall out here, but he's made the commitment and he's out front with an advantage, and a somewhat shrinking advantage at the moment. Is he taking his time and just sort of preparing himself for the first of those little grippers that are going to be the challenge on this penultimate lap? We're on lap 3 of 4, coming up on a half an hour of bike racing, and Colm Sheehan is just picking up and hoovering up riders from Group D who've been distanced, and of course the groups were staggered, started at different moments, so he'll be seeing those riders, but they're not actually in his race. Tell you, looks like Jonathan Caulfield has missed out on this one. He's been dropped out of this group and he's chasing at a remove just under 40 seconds. We've got 17 riders chasing, and Colm Sheehan out front, chased by riders including Eddie Brennan, Richard Barry, Darren Dunn, Chigala, as I've mentioned. Pick out one or two other names. Kevin McCambridge is still in there in that chasing group, and then we've got a number of other riders who are visiting riders, the likes of Tom Wright, Viggo Moore, Eider Zakarin. Is there any other riders of that name, I wonder?
I'd say the riders are just glad it's not Ilnur Zakarin now. He would certainly split this group to pieces, you would imagine.
Indeed, whether it was a flat road or a hilly one. Well, Sheehan has managed to re-establish his double figures advantage, so back up to 10 seconds. The gradient in his favour at the moment, but it's a nice little time trial effort by Colm Sheehan. He's laid it out for the rest. It's great to see this. We haven't seen too many sustained solo attacks at the midway point of a race in the league so far, so it's going to be an interesting conundrum for the riders behind. It's not like they can shout to each other and say, look, we need a little bit of cooperation here. We need to start working together. Will we see them all in a virtual sense looking at each other and hoping to create a bit of a Mexican standoff where someone else will actually sort of crack first and go and do the work? Well, let's see how this one plays out.
Certainly, as we mentioned earlier, maybe with the race being so open this week, there might be a bit of a lull in action while others are waiting for their rivals to commit to the chase, and that could provide the opportunity here for Colm Sheehan just to ride away. And certainly he's looking in control here. When we've had the graphic on the right hand side of the screen, we've seen he's been constantly around 5.8, 5.9 watts per kilo, so it's a very controlled effort. He seems to be well within himself, for as much as he can be when you're pushing 6 watts per kilo, and that is key if he's going to stay away from this far out with a lap and a half to go. If he was, lured into pushing too hard too soon, the chances are that he would blow up. But just as I'm saying all that now, I've spotted up on the screen we've got a new time gap of just 4 seconds. So it looks like this chasing group is
7 seconds to Viggo Moore. So it looks like there's a solo chaser. Colm Sheehan could conceivably be visited by just one rider, and then the best of the rest is Fergus Callan, Darren Dunn. They're towards the front of the big chase group. And according to the official timing that we've been presented with, it looks like Viggo Moore is the sole interloper, 8 seconds now behind Colm Sheehan, who's time trialling away with impressive facility, an advantage of 17 seconds now on the big chase group that includes the likes of Fergus Callahan, Jason Kenny, Richard Barry, Eddie Brennan and the rest. So that's the situation. The advantage is actually going in the right direction for Colm Sheehan, apart from the fact that there's that single interloper, Viggo Moore.
That could actually be key for Colm, because Viggo Moore is not in the Cycling Ireland Zwift League, to the best of my knowledge. So if those two were to get together, Colm would almost guarantee the top points in the Cycling Ireland Zwift League if they could ride together to the finish. He might not take the win in the actual event, but he would certainly take top points in the league. So that could actually play into his hands, the fact that there is one rider coming across who isn't in the league standings.
That was a great illustration of the gap between the leading riders and the chase groups behind. Viggo Moore, for a little bit of internet research, suggests that he's a US-based rider. He's a young rider of some talent and ability, but is he able to get on terms with Colm Sheehan at the moment? Well, Chigala rolls to the front of the chasers as he looks as if he's decided to put on a bit of a charge, and just the way that they can eat into the advantage of the leaders up that little gripper, up that cobble climb, and they just really charge on power up and slice, well, pretty much divide his advantage, have it. And Colm Sheehan, though, over the top, will maintain his effort, keep it consistent, and will it start to expand once more? It's sort of concertina effect, isn't it? That melodeon effect, as a colleague of mine used to like calling it, as the gap goes out and then comes back again, then goes out again. Well, Colm Sheehan continue to persevere, but he certainly is at the moment. Looks like Viggo Moore has been retained by the chasers behind, but that effort from Chigala and the rest has had a big effect on the advantage of Sheehan.
It sure has, yeah, and it was a very, very impressive effort there, to close the advantage by, I think it was around 10 seconds on the one short descent of Lubby Hill is quite impressive. Now it all depends on, can Matteo and Viggo Moore here get together and, chase down Colm Sheehan, or are they going to be reabsorbed by that chasing group? And I think looking at the gaps here, it looks like that chasing group's going to all come back together, and on this cobble climb now, it looks like they're just about to make contact with Colm Sheehan again, so it looks like the end of that brave move by Colm Sheehan.
That's it. It's a great effort from Colm Sheehan, but he has been called to account. He's been dragged back into the fold. They've put it back together again. Just a couple of huge efforts on those climbs, and all that effort comes to naught for Colm Sheehan. Brave effort, though, and certainly worth a shout, as Eddie Brennan just floats to the front of the group. Float is probably not the right term for it. It's a massive effort has gone in. As we get a look at the leader of the women's classification, Maura Claffey. She's got her climbing polka dots on. She's obviously climbing well. She's pretty good on a flat road as well, and Maura Claffey has found a group to race with today, and she is racing with some facility. We understand that she's the leading woman rider in here at the moment, although we're not 100% on that one. We're just checking Zwift Power to get a confirmation of that, but Maura Claffey, any sort of points finish for her today will confirm her status as the winner of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League for 2020. The first Cycling Ireland Zwift League, but not the last one. It's certainly been incredibly popular, and so many riders have experienced online racing for the first time and really have embraced it with great vigour and intensity. Maura Claffey is indeed the leading woman rider. The second placed woman at the moment is Amy Rose Farrell, who is part of the Hop Up coaching group as well. So quite a few riders benefiting from the coaching efforts of Gavin Noble and crew. Emer Nichols also going well. Shannon Kelly's looking, according to ZwiftPower.com, these results and these standings unofficial at the moment, but Shannon Kelly sitting in 4th place, Eileen Burns in 5th, Linda Klein is a visitor in 6th, Ella Doherty in 7th, and well, indeed, looks like Lockery, who's in the B category, is also running in 8th place at the moment, but a bit of a separation there as we focus again once more on the riders up front, and it's a 17 rider group up front at the moment. Darren Dunn is well to the fore, as indeed is Richard Barry, who's got good legs here today. Colm Sheehan, Eddie Brennan and the rest all in good shape now. Are we going to have a little bit of a reset? They've all seen what Colm Sheehan can do, and who's going to be brave enough to try it again? We're coming down to the conclusion. Is the last opportunity for the riders to have a look at the finish and have a feel of the finish as much as anything before they do it for real at the conclusion of this final lap. They're going to get the bell very shortly. Where's the next attack going to come from?
Yeah, good question. There's a lot of riders who look like they're on a good day here. It would have been interesting to see, if Colm had kept that attack for this lap, potentially that it could have been a win and move, but just a little bit too far out when he did make the move around about this point on the last lap. So certainly, I'd be looking towards the riders who, are in this front group. If they're still here at this point, they're obviously on a good day, but who at the same time haven't really made much of an impact yet. So the likes of Kevin McCambridge, who we can see on the front here now, has been in this front group comfortably so far, from what we can see here. And it's riders like that who maybe haven't made a big effort yet, that can have saved all their legs for when it really matters now on this final lap, that could really make an attack that the others aren't able to follow.
It's going to be instructive, isn't it? Matteo Cigala is certainly a rider to conjure with, isn't he? He's one of the fastest finishers in Irish domestic road racing, former Italian international as a junior rider, as many will know. Competed in the World Championships for Italy, and then moved to Ireland, and has been very much an integral part of the Irish road racing scene in recent years.
You just have to wonder how much that big effort on the last time up Levy Hill is going to stop his sprint. There's a good chance that when you make an effort like that, especially on Zwift, when it is, there's so little opportunity to recover. We've just got a couple of short descents to try and recatch your breath. And is that going to have an impact on a sprint if it does come down to a sprint? I suppose we'll find out now within the next 8.6 kilometres.
Kevin Cambridge showing at the front, hasn't troubled the scores so far in this year's league. He's in good form, but I will remind you, his heart rate isn't showing at the moment, and that could be a bit of an issue at the back end. Nonetheless, very impressive.
We've heard from him here that he does have the heart rate on his Wahoo at home, but it's not a Bluetooth compatible heart rate monitor, unfortunately, so it's not showing up on Zwift. So the chances are, if he does achieve a high result here today, it'll be disqualified as the heart rate data isn't showing on Zwift.
Yeah, a lot of riders have really struggled to get it's just quite simply the heart rate monitor that they use is, when they're out the road and doing their regular efforts, is usually ANT+, isn't it? And getting one that's Bluetooth compatible is not, it's usually a complicated affair. Sometimes you need to get your laptop to be made to be ANT+ compatible as well. There's all sorts of, let's say, extra dongles and fiddly little bits.
Probably very much like turbo trainers at the moment, that there seems to be zero stock of anything to do with indoor training or Zwift racing in stock in any shops across the country.
Yes, it could be hard to get all the little bits and pieces. Yeah, indeed. Okay, we're very much on the final lap. We're inside the final 8 kilometres. Eddie Brennan gets into the tuck and scrolls to the front of the group. Everybody is making an effort that's not insignificant. We're still seeing sort of anything between 3 and 6 watts, but I think a lot of riders within their comfort zone at the moment, and down this descent, it's an opportunity to save as much energy as possible. We've heard from so many riders this year that this is a key element of Zwift racing, is learning how to manage your effort and not to use it all up and burn matches unnecessarily. And the descents are complicated, they're difficult. It's about timing your effort on the pedals at the end of a descent to make sure that you're not dropped when the next little drag comes. But by the same token, you need to make sure that you get as much out of the descent in terms of managing your energy levels and retaining a little bit of extra spark for when it really matters. And it's really going to matter with about 6.5 kilometres from now, as Tom Wright floats to the front of the group. Darren Dunn, Paul Oldham, Anderson, Zakarin, Lakovic, also some names to conjure with: Richard Barry, Kevin McCambridge, Paul Oldham. Van Engelen as well has been thereabouts throughout the day, and we're sitting at 17 riders up front at the moment. I don't think we're going to have any radical change on this, but are we going to see somebody chance a late attack? Not everybody. I mean, it's pretty much inconceivable that you're going to have all 17 riders here are going to be satisfied with the idea of this coming down to a 17 rider sprint to the line. Somebody is surely going to try their luck. Darren Dunn in here, sitting second in the league standings at the moment. I will remind you, Chris McGlinchey home and hosed at this moment, and hope to see Chris out for the final event next week. The man from Vitas Pro Cycling will be watching this with great interest, and I'll start it this week. He does have a string of 7 first-place finishes and is the winner of the league. But Darren Dunn is going well in second place at the moment. And Darren Dunn just has a moment to adjust his glasses. I've had this issue myself where the glasses just want to sort of fall off the front of your face. Dunn manages to just adjust that. You got to put all sorts of straps behind. And we got the feedback, so we're able to pick up the images of Darren Dunn in his man cave, in the hurt locker, call it what you will. Man from Nina in County Tipperary, the Munsterman, who would like to make it a first Munster victory of the league if he can manage that. Showing us with the Vela Revolution squad. I know he's a Nina Cycling Club member. And also would appear part of the Vela Revolution team on the road in road racing. 5k left, down to the final 5 kilometres. Colm Sheehan goes to the front. Where's the next attack coming from, Ronan?
The next attack probably as we hit Libby Hill here now. That's certainly an opportunity. It's some of the steepest pitches that we're going to have as we run onto the finish here, and certainly an opportunity for anybody that doesn't fancy themselves in the sprint to make that move. And I know there's a bit of debate there about his heart rate data and that, and whether or not the result would stand should he take it. But Kevin McCambridge, certainly a man who would have the power to go early and sustain that effort all the way to the finish line. But I think Libby Hill might just be one climb too early, and the last 2 climbs just before we get to the finish will be really where the action has to happen, I suppose, for anybody looking to get away before the sprint.
Yeah, 4.5 kilometres, that's a long way out, isn't it, to try and maintain that effort. 2 kilometres, well, that might be something that you could possibly think about doing. Van Engelen, the Dutchman, works his way to the front. Tom Wright, the British rider, not concerned with or thinking about the points, but they could have an influence on the chances of some of the Irish riders scoring points. Were they able to pick up the wheel of some of those riders? Fergus Callan stomping on the pedals, and everything's moving around there, isn't it? Bike turbo. Even the fans starting to, hope he doesn't go through the ceiling and end up in the living room, but it looks like he's got plenty of support there.
Still looking fairly comfortable though. There's no terrible grimace on his face, so still in with a shout here. And we did see the last time up Libby Hill where Matteo made the huge attack. He was closed in by the time we got to the top of the very next cobble climb, and the same for Colm Sheehan. He had sustained his advantage up Libby Hill here, but then it's just maintaining that effort after you've gone so deep on a tough cobble climb like this. That really is. It really does mean that this is just a little bit too far to go to the finish, even though it's inside 4 kilometres. It's the fact that you have to make 3 really big efforts on each of these climbs before we get to that finishing line. That just means that 3.5 kilometres that normally might be the kind of range that you'd be thinking about launching an attack in is just a little bit too far today.
Few lap riders being picked up here and there, sort of getting in amongst the leading A riders with 3.5 kilometres remaining. Fergus Callahan's safely in the group, but is that group going to come back together again? Kevin McCambridge on the front, albeit briefly. 5.3 watts per kilo for Darren Dunn as he makes that little surge through to the front. White, Barry all to the fore. Richard Barry's been making huge efforts of late. And indeed, he moves back towards the front with a heart rate showing at 184 beats per minute. Matteo Cigala kept his powder dry, with apart from that one effort after 2 laps where he absolutely powered to the front. Then Cigala just manages to, get his breath back and freewheels for a moment in the slipstream of the others to ensure that he's safely in the group, but not on the front of the group. Nicely played, and just needs to get back on the pedals. 2.8 kilometres remaining, down to the final 3k, and at the end of what's been a fairly intense effort for these riders, we could have an opportunity for a first victory, a first maximum haul of 10 points for some of the other riders. Are we going to see, will it be Darren Dunn taking his maiden victory? Jonathan Caulfield's been dropped, so he's not going to add to his total. Kieran Jackson is in there hoping for a first victory of the series. Colm Sheehan, I should say, as well, is another man who's yet to take that victory. Cigala as well would fancy his chances. Fergus Callahan is got a best place finish of 2nd place, so victory is on the line for him. Van Engelen goes to the front. Richard Barry wants to stay close to the front as well. Kevin McCambridge hasn't been far from the front in these throughout the race indeed. And with 2 and a bit kilometres to go, are there opportunities left for a late attack?
Matteo is certainly looking good there. Looks like he's just slightly been distanced, maybe just off the tail end of this group. Just showing it a second there at the moment, although it looks like he's just made regained contact onto this group here. So it's all going to come down to this final drag up to the false flat that leads us to the finish line. And certainly, if Matteo can survive over that, you would have to put him amongst the favourites to take the sprint, knowing the kind of the power that he can put down in a sprint like that. So. Still, Richard Barry here looking very good as well. Right to the fore every time the road pitches up. So he might be planning one last attack on this final climb to try and steal that victory from the sprinters.
Worth remembering that Kevin McCambridge can add in the data later if he manages to record it. That can be used by Zwift Paris. So still on for a win for him. And Kevin McCambridge nestling in the group at the moment. Paul Oldham goes to the front, former British cyclocross champion. Tom Wright as well is a man well known to British road race fans. A rider of some significant ability. Not in this one for the points though, but McCambridge, Callahan, Sheehan certainly are. And they're trying to measure their efforts to to the prime and the perfect position as we're inside 1 kilometre to go. We're under the kite and into the final kilometre. We've got this grippy little climb and they get so little relief at the end of the climb because it still continues to drag up imperceptibly all the way through to the line. It's a huge maximum power effort. Fergus Callahan is going towards the front. Darren Dunn is not too far away from the front as well. Van Engelen, though, is the leader at the moment. Huge watt's been put out by him. Fergus Callahan looks like he really wants this one today. McCambridge is tracking his rival, has spotted the danger. Sheehan, Dunn, Barry and Chigala all well to the fore, but it's Fergus Callahan that has set out his stall and believes that he can take the victory today. Riders coming back from the D group still have another lap to go. We'll focus on them. We'll focus on the leaders in these men's A group. Fergus Callahan, the leading Irish rider, albeit just momentarily then passed by Colm Sheehan. Kevin McCambridge focusing on the front as well, and inside 400 metres to go. It's McCambridge, Callahan indeed in second place. McCambridge just moves ahead of him. Briefly, we're looking, and it'd be great to get an overhead at this moment to see exactly what's happening as they go to the line. 250 metres remaining, and it's Van Engelen, the visitor, who's just ahead of Kevin McCambridge. Maximum effort being put out now. The huge watts are being laid out all the way to the line, out of the saddle. Who's going to be able to take it? Van Engelen is the visitor, but where's the leading Irish rider? We look at Kevin McCambridge across the line in second place, who's going to get the top points, and we look for the next rider, Richard Barry, Colm Sheehan, Matteo Chigala in 8th place across the line, Darren Dunn as well, all scoring top points in the Cycling Ireland Zwift League. Well, that was just one of those never-ending sprints. It went on forever. They're going to be coming in dribs and drabs for the next, I'd say next hour. There you have confirmation of the finishing order at the conclusion of this penultimate round of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League, with the visiting rider from the United States of America, Viggo Moore, getting up to take the victory by just under half a second from Kevin McCambridge. Adne Van Engelen, Jacke Lakovic, Tom Wright are visiting riders, and then Richard Barry, Colm Sheehan, Matteo Chigala and Darren Dunn also scoring top points for the Cycling Ireland Zwift League.
Yeah, and interesting there. Well, exciting finish. Kevin McCambridge very close to taking Viggo Moore just right on the line. Another 100 metres, possibly he might have taken the win there. And that, as you said, that sprint seemed to go on from the bottom of the last climb all the way to the finish line. It was just a maximum effort the whole way. Fergus Callahan looked like he was going to take it, having really laid down the power on the climb, but just faded towards the line. And then Darren Dunn as well, just fading as we came close to the line. And he has placed 10th on today's overall results. He'll be a bit higher in the Cycling Ireland results, so he will have taken a few points there, but he's certainly missed out on points to Colm Sheehan and Richard Barry. So again, that's going to bring the whole league a bit closer as well, and the fight for second, third, fourth positions are going to be decided on the final weekend, I suppose.
Yes, it's still all to play for and still wins on offer, but what a fantastic performance by Kevin McCambridge as he's... let's get a look. I think we're going to be able to show the finish of this men's A group. Get a look at it again. It just went on and on forever, didn't it? Viggo Moore managed to get that advantage, and that meant that Kevin McCambridge able to be sort of towed up to maximum points, really, wasn't he, by that fantastic sprint finish from the visiting rider, Viggo Moore.
Yeah, certainly, and he does definitely have the heart rate recording on his Wahoo computer on the bike. So if he can upload that afterwards, that result will stand.
So hopefully we can pick up very shortly on the women's competition. Maura Claffey's been performing with great distinction throughout the series, and we do believe that she is the leading woman competitor and still out there within sight of the finish. So hopefully we'll be able to pick up on her performances. Riders are continuing to scroll through, exhausted, content that the pain and the suffering is over, and they'll get considerable endorphin boost from the effort that they've made. And still waiting to see if we can pick up on Maura Claffey. And it doesn't look, unfortunately, as we're going to be able to find Maura out on the road. She's not too far from the finish at this moment, and we do believe that it is Maura Claffey that's going to take the victory. That will, of course, confirm her status as the winner of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League for 2020. So congratulations to her. Congratulations to all the riders on this 11th and penultimate round of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League. It only remains for me, Declan Quigley, to thank Ronan McLaughlin for his efforts up in Derry. And thanks to all of you for watching. We'll be back for the final round of the Cycling Ireland Zwift League. Same time next week. Please do join us then. But for now, it's goodbye.